Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and all of you out there in the greater RPG community are the co-hosts of this show. Yes, you guys make this show brilliant because you bring your energy and your intelligence to the show. Now, today, we're going to talk about monster hunters. Now, I understand there are literally role-playing games built around monster hunting, whether it is Monster of the Week and various other iterations. But we're going to talk about building a setting around Monster Hunter. This was an idea suggested to myself from Mr. M. Moldeski, and I thought it was something we could revisit. Now, for those who are not familiar, back in the 90s, during the White Wolf heyday, there was actually with vampire and werewolf, there was actually a version of that called Hunter. And I have fond memories of that, where you played the humans running around in a world, well, human or human-like, running around in a world hunting down vampires and werewolves and magi and things of that nature. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about that and talk about what is monster hunting, what are some of the pitfalls, and what are some of the benefits. And at first, I was going to talk about some of the bad things first, get the terrible things out the way. But I think we need to establish a baseline, and then we'll go from that baseline and move forward into our discussion. So, one of the great things about having a setting with monster hunting as its core concept is that it's very easy, and I love role-playing games, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or any others, that have a core concept that is easy to embrace and I'll say whittles away some of the discrepancies that can happen in a world without a particular motivation. Monster hunting literally tells you there's going to be monsters and the PCs are going to be hunting, right? And extraneous player character concepts and ideas kind of fall by the wayside. So having a core essential motivation in the setting is top notch. Some things that come to mind for me would be like games of piracy, monster hunting, heist games, maybe political intrigue. What are some other core concepts that seem really good? Anyway, anything that sounds like it has a motivational force where there is action and movement even in your title and your core concept is awesome because much like a zombie post-apocalypse, when players stand still, there's something out there that keeps things moving along, and the players are needed to engage in this core concept. So, of course, what we need to have are monsters. Now, one of the drawbacks to having a monster hunter concept is boredom. It is if too narrow a focus, and some players might feel like they're being straitjacketed because again, in the core concept, monster hunting, of course, you're going to have monsters. And what kind of monsters do you hunt? Will Monster of the Week, and there really is an RPG called Monster of the Week, will it be so procedural, much like a television show, like the top three television shows: legal procedurals, police procedurals, and medical procedurals, right? And as bored as you can get with those shows, there's a reason why those television shows air on your local networks all the time. And that's because while you get bored, they are a huge draw for other people. It's very easy to delve into it. You don't need much background for later episodes. And again, the Monster of the Week concept is we know what's going to happen. So the players are monster hunters. We know there's going to be monsters. We know there's going to be hunters. Very easy to have a pickup game, but the drawback would be creativity. And so one thing to do is if you're whatever monsters you're picking, and when I say monsters, it could be vampires or witches or dinosaurs or alien beasts or something. And I was reading a thread in our Discord server about a person who has there's like a migration of monsters coming from the deep sea, volcanic area to deep sea, and they're migrating out of the ocean onto land up into mountainous areas with volcanic activity, which makes a lot of sense. We don't think about the relationship and commonalities between deep sea volcanism and overland volcanism, but it sounds awesome. And so having a really good variation both in the environment and the behavior of your monsters really matters. Are there small minions and PCs get to be badasses and try to blow away a bunch of them? Are there mid-level monsters that are really creative or instinctual or smart, like far more like ghosts and zombies or something, witches and warlocks? Or are there big bestial ones? Are they literally huge and giant in your world? Or do they grow to kaiju size, and that's the whole point of stopping the monsters? So that's one thing. Another thing is you're going to find you're going to trace a thread that might be difficult, and that is the black and white issue of players hunting monsters. So in other words, if the monsters themselves are, if you give them far more humanity and innocence and whatnot, it may be a problem for some players to be hunters of things that understand that the monsters, it's not really their fault, right? If they're being manipulated or something like that. That's why in Zombie Apocalypse, everyone knows when you get turned, there's no turning back. There isn't any, oh, we can't kill the zombies because they're our best friends and there's a chance that we can save them. Usually in Zombie Apocalypses, it's like, nah, you're already gone. So you have to establish some kind of mechanism where, or make it plain that even though the characters might feel have some empathy towards some of the monsters, it's pretty clear you need to eliminate them or stop them in their tracks. And then the hunting part of this, and this is the part that I think is going to be your best tool, and that is um, to make as many and varied and different circumstances in your hunting that you can, from the preparation to the actual tracking, hunting, stalking, maneuvering to the monster, to the aftermath of the fact, removing the monsters from where they are. Or is there some kind of resource that the monsters are going after? Do they have a resource in them? A gland? Do they produce some kind of material like webbing or silk, or is there a chemical in their biochemistry or something? Their skin, their teeth. Uh, are there havens that or their eggs or something? Like, is there something that humanity can gather from them that is very important as well? And then is there, after destroying them, is there some other concepts like, do their bodies draw other predators? Are they irradiated? Do they, if left to their own devices, do they sink into the ground and decompose and make some other hazards that are out there? So that kind of thing. And then lastly, we'll talk about the economy. Sometimes the great thing about monster hunting is the economy around it. And even though The Walking Dead has kind of, for me, run its course, Walking Dead and the Pacific Rim franchise kind of has to, I'm going to bring up because it kind of has to do with the economy around it. But let's get into our co-host here. Hey, Mike, what's going on? Mike says, in Thol, the activities of twin red dragons, Magmix and Ashwin, caused the eruption of Fury's twins, volcanic islands. This eruption caused a crop failure in the Iron League, prompting an invasion of the Jovian Order by these orcs, lest they starve, and result war. Yeah, and the thing is, and when it comes to hunting, again, you could insert this in your own setting. Like, an event happens, and now the PCs are out there, and they have to stop whatever's going on. And one of the ideas involved in it, like, you don't need to necessarily drop the PCs on a alien world and tell them to go hunting, but it might be necessary, especially if this could be caused by your player characters. Let's say they destroy the hags or the werewolves or something in your world that was keeping some kind of ecological or political balance. And when one gets thrown out, the other one starts to rise up. And so maybe it might be the player character's fault and whatnot. And then a thing happens, or something ecological does happen. Volcanoes, um, a long winter, famine, disease, any number of things, whether it's a natural event like hurricanes or tsunami, tornadoes, whether it's forest fires, earthquakes, whether it's something meteorological like asteroids, comets fall from the meteorites fall from the sky. It could be something arcane. Of course, we have plenty of like interdimensional apertures, something that's been we have plenty of monsters that left dormant, they then awaken and something happens, or maybe something very simple in your world starts to overbreed. Yesterday we were talking about ankhegs or something like that, and something begins to overbreed and now the players need to go hunt it. One of the great things about hunting as well is the economy. And when I say economy, I don't yes, I am partially talking about value. Like maybe there's like fur or skin or chitin or blood or organs or teeth or something that could be collected, but it may also be some things of the nature like uh, are there different hunters leagues, and maybe the player characters might come in contact or in opposition to some other hunters leagues who want to garner some kind of power or position of authority, or maybe there are other hunters that hunt in particular regions, and it may be a capture the flag who gets there first kind of ideal as well. Yet, sure, the players may want to take 3 weeks to get to a particular area, but if their rivals are a week ahead of them, maybe the players need to push further. And of course, you have resource economies as well. How many resources are the players using? Are we going to add resource management into the game? And then there's the aftermath of players being wounded. Um, if the players use too many resources, are those resources coming from a home base of sorts? So players could have a mobile home base. Again, ships and airships, aquatic ships, campsites, things of that nature. Maybe there are protected regions, city states behind walls or force fields or arcane barriers and whatnot. Maybe society needs to live within the same regions as these monsters. So there's kind of a a like the monsters carve out havens that humanity must live in, but the monsters are needed to carve out those havens in the first place, and so on. Also, there might be other nations that might force monsters to move or migrate into the play where the player characters are staying, just to get them out their way. We see that even today with like here in the Ohio Valley, we have mosquito spraying because it literally is a valley and it rains and snows and we get lots of water. So you have communities that can pay for mosquito spraying, but wouldn't that just move the mosquitoes to places elsewhere who may not be able to afford it? So that might be an issue as well, if we consider mosquitoes and terrasks to be about the same, right? Anyway, getting into the our co-host, Deadman says in Warhammer 40K, Death Guard in Warhammer 40K Death Guard, you play as a Space Marine contributed to the Death Guard to fight enemies of the Empire of Man. It could be tyrannoids or orcs or chaos demons. I know it's called demons, but whatever. And many other possibilities. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, we can talk about what kind of people are recruited to be hunters, and you could play with that as well. And Mike says in first edition AD&D DMG had a list of the value of monster parts. Yeah, that table likely instigated more monster fights than any other. Vampire dust? 1,000 gold pieces per file. Right, guys? Do we know of any vampires? Yeah, yeah. And then there's what is that link to eating monsters? But yeah, there's lots of like what the classic um, jars of and vials of various things sitting on the shelves of wizards and warlocks and witches. Eye of Newt. You're like, well, don't we need some newts to get their eyes out? Yeah. Anyway, Michael goes on to say, talk about dragon scales. Yep, everybody wanted. At least back in the first edition, wanted like, or AD&D wanted dragon scale armor, but dragon scales, Umber Hulk eyes, ooh, all carried a hefty price tag. Oh, Deadman says it's the Death Watch. Yeah, yeah. Yep, the monster manual, not the manual, but the menu all. Yeah. hmm. Let's eat some aberrant tentacled monster. Ooh, calamari. Mike Gold says the closest to this is the fifth edition in the closest to this in the fifth edition DMG is the poison table, though I don't know of anyone hunting purple worms for their very valuable tail venom. And listen, we've got lots of Dungeons and Dragons monsters that we could make as a overriding threat. Like for example, there's nothing saying that we can't take our standard setting, take a monster or a family of monsters, classification of monsters, and just say that they're out of control. And not only are the player characters hunting them, but everybody else. I go back to the Ankhegs as an example. You could have a setting where, oh, every like the cicada thing here in the States, it's like, oh, every 27 years they overbreed and they wake up and they come out the ground and they start building hives and going everywhere. And now, despite the fact that in the background of your world you have liches and dragons and whatnot. I mean, hell, maybe the red dragons are like kind of pissed off that they have to keep blasting fire through their volcanic caves to keep the Ankhegs out, right? And it's not that the dragons are threatened, but it's just annoying, you know. And so, yeah, absolutely. Now, what kind of situations are the player characters in? Someone by the name of going by the name of Kalman dropped a pretty interesting and I want to say very creative idea for having a Monster Hunter game using cards in which, by drawing the cards, it creates various situations that the players can engage in. And you can do this with cards, random tables, or whatnot to say, okay, well, here's the change. Here are the circumstances that lead to the hunting. Like, are you hunting something through, let's go with natural environment, the desert, Arctic region, high elevation mountains, jungles, rainforests, coastal areas, plains, crags, etc. Right? Are you hunting them through there? Where are they? Do they live there? Are they being forced to migrate through there, or do they grow spontaneously, or something like that? Something else could be um, a situation created by the monsters themselves. Do they create hives? Do they burrow? Do they come through dimensional apertures? Uh, is there something that they do with their dead? Like, do the dead decompose? Do they eat them? Do they leave eggs? Are they like spiders, like giant spiders with their back filled with little eggs that they carry around with them? And then all the materials that the monsters have, are they poisonous? Do they breathe out a toxic gas? All that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely. Uh, hey Jay, Jonathan Miles, right? Says asks, is this like Monster of the Week style monster hunting, or like Monster Hunter Witcher 3 style monster hunting? Well, that's the question, right? Do what kind of monster hunting are we talking about, right? Is this literally a one shot, like, oh, it literally is Monster of the Week, like the is it is every time we play, are we doing it in media res? Like, are we literally player characters, weapons drawn, and literally a step away from the shadow of the monster around the corner? Or are we getting far more into this isn't a one shot, but this is an ongoing campaign of sorts where we have political machinations happening in the background, much like Pacific Rim, right? The first Pacific Rim, it was all about, hey, we're badass soldiers, we're going to get in giant robots and we're going to fight monsters. In the second one, even though the quality went down a bit, the second one had a lot more into it. Like, for example, we had black marketeers cutting up the kaiju. We had corporations trying to come up with better better Jaegers than other people, that were drones, that we were going to have drone Jaegers instead of pilots piloting them. We had Jaegers that moved more fluid, doing jumping spin kicks, bouncing off of walls. I mean, skyscrapers, but you get the point, right? So it depends on how deep you want to go. And I think the Monster Hunter concept lends itself to very easy, like, you know what? We're going to do a pickup game. Guys, get your characters. You're already in the jungle. You've got your goggles, magic. You've got your science. You've got, I don't know, aerial view from satellites. You've got your ranger out front and a scout and maybe somebody else, and you're already there. Pickup game, boom, you're done. You're already in it. So I think it lends itself to something really cool. I forgot. Whoa. Co-host Mike says, I can remember players turning to the Wizard PC going, hey, John, does this monster have anything valuable? Wizard says, let me see. Yes, their brains are 5,000 gold piece a pop. Right, looks like monsters are back on the menu. Yeah, listen, back in first edition, I had players that would it wasn't just loot the body. I know loot the body is a big thing. Oh man, they carve up brains and organs and all kinds of stuff. It didn't even matter. Like they were just like, carve it up now and go back into it later. Yeah. Just reading the potion description in the DMG, you can get some hints. Giant strength potions, that's giant toenails. Yeah. Well, that's also an idea as well. Like they could literally have an in-game resource needed for whatever you're doing. Like, hey, I've got to cast my spell that has a poison effect. I need to get poison from a monster. That might limit player characters' choices, but I also think it might be pretty interesting. Like, hey guys, you just pulling this out of my ass, but you can pick. You now have 5 second level spell slots, right? But you don't pick your spells. The spells are limited by the resources you get, and then those resources fall along the lines of the spells that you can pick. If you get poison, you can pick spells that have a poison effect to it. If you, I don't know, you get those dragon scales, then you can pick spells that have effects on, I don't know, lizards or dragons or breathing fire or some crap like that. Sorry about AJ. I was going to bring up Witcher 2, but we're going to talk about player characters in a minute. Mike says, there's literally a ranger subclass called the Monster Hunter. Yep, sure is. The Blood Hunter is also a great example. These two take on that Witcher Grim, role feel. Yeah, like the brothers Grim Hunters. There's also the idea of there's always been witch hunters, vampire hunters that are pretty cool. And focusing the players down, like with vampire hunting, right? We know so much about the mysticism and mythology of vampires. We know like stakes and garlic and religious symbols and holy water, right? We know that from so much media about vampires and how they've been twisted and turned. And I think monsters, like going back to the insects and the ant kegs, maybe there's some kind of scent that you can burn, like incense. Maybe there's oils that you can coat onto your armor or weapons. Maybe they are drawn to or repelled by fire versus something else. Dune, we've got the sandworms and the thumpers that make noise and tremor sense in the sand, and we use those to corral, maneuver, distract, attract the worms and whatnot. And maybe there's something like that with the monsters as well, whether it's light, the certain kinds of magics that you may cast and things like that. Mike Gould says Reign of Fire had an ex-military unit hunting dragons. Yeah, parachuting out of helicopters to draw the dragons seems a little bit crazy, but it was a cool look though. Anyway, if you want to look at Seaborn examples, the Jaws series could also serve as an example. Yeah, oh yeah. And also, the paladin trope is very anti-monster as well. This is purely an antiquated outlook, but it's still quite prevalent. I agree as well. And listen, if you want to go far, you want to go back a few hundred, probably quite more than a few hundred years. There's the tribal idea of the hunters getting together to go out and hunt something, right? There's the stories of the young people going on their first hunt. There's the elder hunters needing to go out and hunt something to bring it back. Of course, there's always the trope of innocent people hanging around their home. Something attacks their home. We need to go out and hunt that thing to kill it because it not only hurt us, it's also ravaging the landscape, and so we need to hunt it. Now, one of the limitations, again, of hunting is player character choice. And not every player needs to be a ranger. Not every character concept needs to be a paramilitary. For example, uh, there might be skills or particular attributes that characters may be born with, even though they may not fall into what we call a core concept of being a badass hunter, right? Like if you're an oracle and you were born with the ability to see the future, or maybe you get stomach cramps whenever you sense these monsters or whatever, you might not have been born to it, but we might need you anyway. Yeah, I see what you guys, Jonathan Miles mentions. I love the idea of monster hunting because it's a good way to make monster lore mechanical. But how would you reveal information without it coming down to a bunch of skill checks? Ooh, I like that. Well, I I don't think there's anything wrong with the rules. I think we as role players have made this hard line between combat and skill checks when they're all the same. It's a D20 roll. And I think in my head, the we could say, well, it just comes down to skill checks, combat is just a bunch of skill checks too, right? It's a D20 plus some mods. The only difference between that is in combat, we go a step further and we add in like conditions and damage rolls and whatnot. But like armor class is just a DC. So when it comes to hunting monsters, we the preparation part of that, the stalking, the stealthy part, the where are they at, how many are there, what like dragons, is it a green or a red, is it chromatic or or a gemstone or whatever. Finding those things out with your skill checks will give the players benefits in terms of what they're going after. Sure, they might hunt down let's say they're dragon hunters, they hunt down a black dragon, but what if that black dragon has a mom or dad or a twin sister or something and they didn't know that? Well, the skill check part of it might add into it. And it also, again, we're using the environment as well. So are the players in the Arctic North and they end up getting caught in a blizzard? Now they can't see. Your dark vision is useless. You're also on slippery ground. It's freezing cold outside. And remember, we've got like spells that require sight. And now all of a sudden the monster's like, cool, sweet, blizzard. Now I get to turn on you like Yetis or something, right? Mike brings up the rite of passage trope. Exactly. Yep. Beowulf hunting the Grendel. Yeah. Yep. That's a classic one too, right? And it wasn't 50,000 monsters. It was there's a monster out there and we need to hunt it down. Now, mind you, this could just be a one-off. Hey, I have a classic D&D setting, and today we're going to delve into monster hunting. And who's to say that your bookworm wizard doesn't have to put on a backpack and the character is like, I don't want to go. The player's like, hell yeah, but the character's like, I'd rather be studying some books. And they're like, look, we need you. We need you to go hunt this monster or collect resources from the monster. Much like what is it? Rust monsters, Zorns, those kind of monsters go after a resource. So hunting the monster that goes after the resource we need might be important. So yeah. Yep. Uh, Mike says I like the idea. I like the idea of inserting cryptic poems or cave paintings. Yep, and the like as hints for monster hunting. Also, uh, players may encounter people who live and have survived with these plentiful monsters around and have to have connections with them, even if they are normally enemies. Like humans go into the swamp and there's lizard folk. The lizard folk have been hunting the monsters as well. Lizard folk don't like the humanoids that the player characters are, but they're like, we can work together. Let's exchange something. Hey, we have this salve, this oil that you can put on your skin, and it prevents them from smelling you. Oh, cool, sweet. How much do you have? We've got 3 vials. What do you have? Right? And maybe that village then ends up getting attacked. Players need to defend them. So you can create various situations that are far less than um, players, monster players. I think alternate win conditions, what other avenues of what success means rather than just killing the monster, I think would be important as well. Mike Gould says, and these will be handouts so the players can mull them over out of game. Oh, like I love the idea of like poems. Maybe you could even pull out those artificial ecological pages that you used to find in encyclopedias and magazines and National Geographic, like was mentioned in our Discord from Kalman's game. Yeah, I love that idea. And as a matter of fact, there might even be changes as well. Like, for example, a particular monster might be evolving through time. I bring up the Aliens franchise, where the alien itself would change based on its host. Like, for example, there was an Aliens movie where the alien made a dog of a host, and that alien creature became more dog-like. It could also be based on environment. Like, for example, an alien egg growing in the Arctic North might be very different than one growing in a volcanic region or aquatic region or rainforest and whatnot. So yeah, Dead Man says, player one, what color was that dragon? Player two, I don't know. I'm colorblind. I can't tell the difference until it breathes. Is it green or red? I don't know. Oh no. It's a mix of the two. It's a green and red dragon. Oh no. Michael says, lizard folk can't smell you if you smear your body. This is a quote, excuse me. Let's see if we can get this done. The lizard folk can't smell you if you smell your body with the mud of the lake they live in. You smell like the background. Just as an example, a rift on Predator. Yeah, hell's yes. Okay, I'm going to go back to a comment that Jonathan Miles mentioned, and that Mike's bringing up in this one. And I'm going to give a slight plug to Level Up 5e from the new Kickstarter from ENWorld. When it comes to exploration, we often don't relate exploration to success. And the player characters may find a region like the mud smearing over your body because it's let's go back to the volcanism, right? Maybe there is something special about this area that the players discover through exploration that helps them in their desire to go after whatever that thing is. And that mud, maybe in this volcanic region smeared over the body, maybe that's why the lizard folk are surviving, may help them. Now, the good thing is players may get it. Of course, they're going to want to collect it. Maybe the bad thing is, guess what? It's only here. Much like ciphers in the cipher system, or you want to reward your players with quote unquote magic items, but you don't want to unbalance your game. If they are limited by region, the fountain of youth is a fountain is classically would be, oh, it's a stream of golden fluid, and if you drink it, tastes like urine, but it gives you long life. If it's only in this one location, then you can't take it with you. Of course, PCs are going to try to figure out a way to store it or take it, but again, it may only be in one area. Players get the benefit of it, they move on, then guess what? You can take it away from them. So it may be temporary, it may have a time frame, it could spoil. And this way you can throw out a bunch of these goodies at players, these one-use goodies, all along the way. Like, for example, maybe the players remember the old arrows of slaying that were in AD&D. I think they still exist, but blank slaying arrows were a thing where you get, and it went back to what is it, the bard killing the dragon Smaug, where you get one shot, but that arrow is designed to kill that one thing. We can also talk about mechanics and CR levels as well. Also, we can talk about long rest, short resting. This is a perfect example of how time and pressure and tension are extremely important tool for dungeon masters everywhere, just outside of hunting monsters. And that is, players hunting monsters are not just predators, they may also be the prey, which means that players may need to regulate when and how they take their long rest, short rest. In other words, dungeon masters can always confront players that you can't take your short rest, because if you sit still in their haven, they're going to constantly hunt you down, which means that players might need to be very creative to try to find areas to protect themselves. And now, mind you, fifth edition has a lot of easy buttons: tiny hut, create food and water, purify food and water, good berry, etc. Right? We know this, but depending on your setting, you could mitigate or completely eliminate those things, or maybe these are monsters that can bypass it, or yes, you can use those, but the time it takes you to use it is going to reduce your ability to hunt the thing that you're going after, like griffins or wyverns or something like that. Let's see. Mike mentions someone, some find an old geezer who lives in the wilds, despite it being monster country, is a great hook for finding out tricks. Yeah, yes, the classic old geezer living in the dangerous area but still surviving. Yep, Dritz Duerden found one. Our favorite dual wielding drow found an old blind man. That was when he became a ranger or something. Anyway, they might know of things like mud or leaves or poison fruits, etc., that are key to hunting some monsters. Also, again, with the wind conditions, maybe monsters are drawn to or forced away from something: fire, scent, poisons, musk, things of that nature as well. Village gets attacked by ankhegs. Players try to surround village with big bushels of these I don't know, wolf's bane or something like that, garlic or whatever. That's with more vampire, but you get the point. And then surround it, start burning them, and it might be the wind condition might be saving the village, not destroying the monsters. An example. Yeah, Deadman says it was Arrow of Blank Slaying, like Arrow of Monster Slaying. They started in first edition and carried into second, third, and 3.5. I didn't know if they were in fifth. And now I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe in first and second they instantly killed the monster, and I think later on they did additional damage. But I remember in the beginning, these were one shotters. Like, you didn't get a bushel of arrow slaying, like, arrow of dragon slaying, arrow of demon slaying, or something. Like, you found one, and it was like, listen, if you're going to be the archer, you better not miss. Mike says, example: there may be an apple that has seeds that are poisonous to boulets. It's pronounced boulet. The boulets love them, but become sluggish after they eat them. You have to literally trick a boulet into breaching. Um, into breaching. Okay, yeah. So it may eat some. It'll cost you a horse, maybe. Yep. I love that idea. There was some great artwork that someone did. I thought this would be a great area where the the artwork was based around people living in mesas and plateaus and high rocky areas, and the soft earth and sandy ground was inhabited by these monstrous beasts. And the communities had to travel along ropey cable cars from plateau to plateau, mesa to mesa, and they would dangle chunks of food down, like a half-eaten carcass or something, to draw the monsters out, to get them away, either to kill them or to draw them away so people could travel. And that might be another thing, like the classic protect the caravan in a monster hunting setting, meaning like players might not always be hunting. um, sounds like a hip hop song. Yo, I'll always be hunting, but they might not always be hunting. They might be doing other options, other things like protecting caravans, protecting dignitaries, and protecting trade routes. It may also be a simple thing of decoyism, right? Players need to present themselves as the distraction, the decoy, so that others can get away from the thing. Like, hey, player characters, we're not trying to sneak up on it. We're trying to be as loud as possible. We're waving our hands. We're setting fires. We're getting on megaphones going, I am food. I am food, right? And then the monsters start converging at them, and then their allies, the people they're trying to protect, are trying to get away, so that to so the players are literally trying not to present themselves as a threat, because the monsters might go, I'm not going to get killed by those PCs. Let me go get something easy to eat, right? Or devour or whatever. And the monsters themselves need not be classic animalistic, mindless beasts as well. Going back to vampires and witches, they could be something that has illusions, shape changing, mind control, and hypnotism. They could hide in the public eye, and the players might be like secret police or proctors or something like that. Witch hunters going into town. Maybe the player characters themselves are the Inquisition, and as the Inquisition, they have to speak to people who may not know that they are agents of the thing that they're hunting. This may also put the player characters on their heels as well, especially if the players are on a mission to hunt the dangerous thing, but the population doesn't think the thing is as dangerous as the player characters know the thing to be. So an example would be going back to the witch, vampire, ghost, mind flayer, Rakshasa, doppelganger, lycanthropy hunters, right? They may be, this thing may, or creatures may have insinuated themselves or are able to insinuate themselves into human populations or humanoid populations. And the player characters are looked at like, you're criminals, you just killed grandma, even though they know grandma is already dead and the doppelganger took her place, right? And so that may also be a way to create even more dynamic interactions where the players are trying to find out who and what is out there. At the same time, they're trying to be polite, you're like, I can only be so polite to you. Eventually, I'm going to punch you in the face because the people you think you're protecting are your enemies. Your family's dead, right? Mike says, yeah, riffing on The Thing, the movie The Thing, or movies. There's been various iterations of The Thing. It may well be a blood test trick needed to identify a doppelganger. Yeah, and how many people want that? Or if we want to go arcane, it might be, do you have a reflection in a mirror? Is it holy water or holy symbols pressed against the flesh? Is it the very idiotic do you sink or swim with the witch test? Now, with player characters, of course, the monsters are real, but what happens if the thing that is preventing the player characters from discovering the agents of these monsters isn't as reliable as we think it is, or it's very reliable, we just don't know, right? Like there's lots of 5th edition monsters that are unseeable until they reveal themselves. And so player characters may need to round up 37 townsfolk and put them through a test where they all have to come up on stage or something, or to the sitting stone or something, and have a holy symbol etched on their face with holy water until it reveals themselves, and then the exorcism leaves the body of the person that's been infected and whatnot for the demon to really come out. And then of course, oh, thanks, Deadman. Deadman says the Arrow of Slaying was in 5th edition as well. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Yeah, I think I I don't have it in front of me. I think it does damage. I don't believe it instantly kills. So those were those insta kill stuff were pretty interesting. Okay, let's get into The Witcher. Now, it's also possible, and I think this would be a great reason, instead of us folding our arms and pouting that racial features have now been are more the norm for racial features: elf, dwarf, dragonborn are being split into heritage and culture, essentially. Heritage meaning what is your blood type, what is your genetic makeup, and then you have a culture. Oh, I live on a coastal region. I live in the mountains. I live in a desert. I live in the jungle. And I live in a city, and splitting those two up. Now, another way of, much like Van Richten's guide to Ravenloft and other things, race doesn't need to be race at all. It could be player characters transformed to become hunters in the first place. So you might not have been born this way, but your race is something that you were created this way. Much like in the Witcher series, through alchemical processes and spells and things. Like, could you, like, for example, let's go with Blade. Blade, super famous vampire hunter. What is Blade? Blade's a daywalker. Blade is a partial vampire who hunts other vampires. Was he born that? Well, technically he was born that way. So that maybe man, I am so wrong on that. Dompier, doesn't matter. My point being is that that a character could have been altered, transformed, cursed, modified, infected, and so now maybe the player character has aspects. Could you imagine a humanoid character, elf, goblin, halfling, human that has been hunting dragons, and they've been infected by dragon blood, or they went through a ritual that they got to soak in the blood of a dragon, and now they, small scales line the back of their hands, even though they used to be human, and flames, drip out of their eyes and mouth, and they can breathe fire. Are they dragonborn? Maybe in your world, no. Maybe this just happens to be a side effect of being a hunter. Now, we've also seen this before, where unlike the classic knights hunting monsters with lances and hunting dragons, we've seen where society kind of despises the hunters themselves. Witcher is kind of like this, where people are like, yeah, you're needed, but you scare me quite a bit. And player characters people might be scared of players, because of the player characters, because of what their job is. There are plenty of jobs in our real world where the practitioners are the untouchable. There are cultures during different periods of time where people handle the dead, and we need death rights, but those people may also be the untouchables. There are people who have to handle waste, trash men, and things like garbage men, people. So we need them. Person who handles porta potties and stuff, but you don't go around shaking their hands too often. I joke because those individuals are needed, and you could have a really great lifestyle being that individual. So in this world, the person who quote unquote volunteers to be a monster hunter themselves might be looked at as the monster as well. And of course, you might have an attitude like The Witcher does, like, you a-holes, I kind of sacrificed my life to be this person, and you're gonna look at me like I'm some kind of like outcast, whatever. F you. Sorry, that's just little flashbacks of being a nerdy kid. Anyway, Mike says the folk horror of The Witcher is actually a great resource. The first lycanthrope of a line of werewolves may well have been a parent who slew the illegitimate child of another under a full moon. Yeah, there's a ton of dark fairy, what are they called? Grim tooth stories where they're super dark. Remember, if I'm not mistaken, the first vampire stories were like murdering a firstborn child, and like, what is it, the Cain and Abel story. It's like a lot of the mysticism of the monsters came about from performing heinous acts in the world. Maybe in this world, to be a monster hunter, maybe every monster hunter themselves has committed a crime against humanity, and the PCs are making up for it by becoming hunters themselves. That's pretty dark, but I like a grim dark story like that. Like, why are you a monster hunter? I was a murderer. Like, whoa. And the entire yeah, Dead Man says the Brothers Grimm's fairy tales. They're all dark. Yeah, ashes to ashes, they all fall down. Yeah. Mike Gould says the Frankenstein Chronicles addressed the industry of grave robbing in the Victorian era. Yeah, grave robbers and things. And listen, just like anything, player characters are like, I'm a badass. I'm gonna go out and kill some monsters. I killed monster. I killed a dragon. Sweet. And then imagine the industry around that. People trying to steal, cut up the bodies, steal the teeth, the scales, the organs, the I forgot the term for it. The people who sell fake remedies for things. The ones who try to who want to get in and get out so quick. They want to make a quick dollar. Those people who are like, oh, I've got the powdered ivory of elephants and stuff, and it's going to make you virile and stud like as a manly man, and make you womanly woman, and it helps you lose weight and cast magic and gives you immortality. It's 3 gold pieces a shot, and then boom, they get out of there. There's going to be a lot of that as well. Also, politically, you know, do does a do rich merchants, nobles, leaders of community leaders, do they want to befriend monster hunters and then turn on them? Does it give you great power to hobnob, to invite the monster hunters to your parties, and then giving you additional power? If monster hunters, the player characters, are in a particular region, does that automatically upset the martial military balance of one region versus another? Oh, they've got 3 monster hunters. They might try to invade our area, right? Even though, yeah, snake oil salesman. Thank you very much, there, D. Yeah, dead man's like snake oil salesman. Yeah, there's going to be. I think there'd be a ton of them. How about fake monster hunters? The the fake monster hunters come to town. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It starts this way. Monsters attack village. Monster hunters just happen to show up. Monster hunters say, pay me and I'll get rid of the monsters. Monster hunters get rid of monsters. They go, hey, but really what it is, there are like, I don't know, a stack of kobolds or goblins with a cloak around them. And they're pretending to be this monster stealing chickens. And then somebody else shows up, the human and the half elf, and they go put their hands on their hips and they're like, I'm here to save you. Just pay us some gold. People are like, yeah, they're stealing our chickens. Here's some gold. And then the human and half elf split the gold with the kobolds or the goblins out in the field. They're like, sweet, sweet, sweet. We can play this game for a couple years now, right? You're going to get a ton of that. You may even have leaders that might be losing political power, and they want monsters to be a threat to distract the population from them being insignificant and irresponsible leaders in the first place. Always great. It's always great to have a war when you are losing political power, right? Mike Gould says, getting back to the Ghoulfly concept, I have a Dhampir concept where he literally infected himself with a maggot to escape a werewolf. It's the do I die by its hand or curse myself trope. Yeah, yeah. Again, I think it would be sweet to have player characters like player character concepts on the clock. I go to Palladium Games Rifts. I love the juicer. For those who don't know, Rifts, Earth in the future, giant rifts open up. Rifts is an excuse to have multiple Palladium games, multiple different types of genre all take place in the same world. And there's a character concept called the Juicer. And the Juicer wears a harness that has like nanotech and adrenal boosts, and it makes them superhuman, but they have a low lifespan. That would be a sweet concept. Like, oh, you weren't born a sorcerer. You had one of those ghoul fly things, those maggots inserted into your ear or up your nose or something. Or you have something like a octopi or spider-like that's like attached to the back of your neck or the side of your face, and it gives you your player character concept, but everybody knows, socially, everyone knows you sacrificed yourself, but it's only a matter of time before you transform. Like it's 30 Days of Night. You know, I forget the actor's name. Doesn't matter. Main character up in the Arctic, 30 Days of Night, chooses to be bitten by a vampire to gain the strength and speed and power of a vampire, knowing that at some point they will become mindless, animalistic vampire like the other vampires that were attacking them. And I think that'd be a great story. Like, you don't even need to do this mechanically. It could just be this could just be a character concept, like, oh, my character is a sorcerer, and probably in 3 months they're dead, or they are undead, or they're going to transform, or again, maggot in the ear. I've got powers, but when my character dies, chest bursts, maggots come out of their chest and whatnot. Yeah, and it's also the enemy within. Like, hey, we need you, Mister. Uh, Maybe in this world, like druids or lycanthropes. So we need you, druid, but at some point you're going to turn and you'll never turn back. So we may need to kill you. And this sounds like a very good 1 to 3 shot monster of the week style thing as well. Yeah. snake oil Snake oil salesman, a yuan-ti who sells elixirs under the guise of a doctor, but the elixirs turn the users into mindless slaves. That is awesome. That is very awesome. Hey, using your um idea, Mike, of the bounty hunter white wraith idea, might be a monster hunter who who literally is evil, hunting other monsters, turning people voluntarily kind of into their servants to hunt monsters, knowing that they are also building a loyal entourage for this person. That would be that's a great interaction. Like, why aren't the people killing the undead wraiths and whites? Because they're helping us against all the onslaught of the other monsters. And maybe there's family members that have literally trained their young ones. Like, you know, it's it's the acceptance of the inevitable, right? You're just being trained to become one of the new people, or I don't know what it's called. You could come up with a name where they're transformed into something else. Mike Gould says combat drugs are big in Cyberpunk. Yeah, they are. I love them. Boosting your reflexes and pain editors and things like that. Anyway, investigating an incident might lead one to believe that the perpetrator had cyberware, only to find out they're dosing combat drugs. Exactly. I mean, again, this is narrative, right? Magic spells like mage armor, stone skin, and many things could be re-flavored as alchemical concoctions. Like, oh yes, I am casting a spell of bless mechanically, but what it looks like is I pull out these 3 elixirs and I hand them to my player characters, and they down them because they are some kind of alchemical mixture of vampiric blood and other like herbs and things of that nature, and it gives them a benefit in combat temporarily, but maybe it turns their skin bone white, or it gives them a bloodlust temporarily, or something like that. And again, it doesn't need to be mechanical, but it could be very interesting. Michael says, Atherol, the white blade will turn any humanoid into a zombie. Have a ghoul problem? Yeah, exactly. Okay, it costs you 1 villager as a zombie, and she'll kill the ghouls. Also, who become zombies? Exactly. Yeah, I'll get rid of your ghoul problem. You just need to give me 1 volunteer. That's it. I don't even need to fight you. And then, hey, those ghouls, I've got 5 of them now in my entourage, right? Yeah. I love it. I love that idea. And then the the white blade might end up becoming the thing that other people need to hunt down. This also brings to mind like how do villagers protect themselves? They could have these strange alliances with other monsters out there, and then they become the problem unto themselves. You could literally bottle barbarian rage in a D&D setting as a combat potion. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's awesome. Also, here's another way to modify a game for player options. Instead of character classes, we all know about multi-classing, which technically dual classing and multi-classing is an optional rule. It's optional, but you could also create a feat or allow a player, no matter what character class they pick, instead of picking an option at their particular level, hey guys, you guys are monster hunters. I understand rangers make great monster hunters. So instead of picking a particular thing for your character at that level, you can pick the appropriate thing at the same appropriate level for a ranger. Or if you're an 8th level cleric, when you get the 9th level, maybe you get to pick a first level ability from the ranger. Or you could just get rid of all that and go, oh, by the way, can pick this. Everyone has this thing from the ranger class, and that's it. Like, there's no rangers, but everyone has like favorite enemy or something. Or it could just be a boon or a gift during the game, right? Like, hey, that was great. You guys reached 5th level. You know what? You guys been hunting vampires this whole time. I'm going to make vampires your favorite enemy. You're like, really? I'm like, yeah, why not? It could be temporary, like a gift bestowed upon the people by an avatar of the gods, or a coatl shows up, and one of those winged snakes, those goodly winged snakes or something, comes by, and for 9 days hence they have the ability to do the monster hunting thing or whatnot. So it would be kind of cool. I don't know. I like the idea, and I think there's more to it than literally not doing anything. Anyway, got to get out of here pretty soon. Mike Gould says, riffing on that, the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde concept applies to barbarians. That's true. Your barbarian character might be a mild-mannered guy who juices themselves to become combat rage monsters. Hell yeah. Oh, hells yes. I always thought it would be cool to, like, you don't even really need to change the stats, but it would be funny to, like, play up a character that's got, like, 8 strength and, like, a 9 dex. It's got, like, a 7 constitution. It's just like Steve Rogers, Captain America, before the serum. And it's just like, I want to fight. And everyone's just like, whatever. And then all of a sudden they're just like, no, I want to fight. Like, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. There's a lot of superhero characters that are like that. Even slipped in my mind and lost it on the other end. Oh well. Anyway, guys, we come to the end. We could talk about this all tomorrow. Tomorrow, Future Friday, we are going to talk genetic fiction. The television series Y: The Last Man has come out here in the States on FX on Hulu. So it's come out on Hulu, and Hulu has a somewhat subsection of all the FX shows. So Y: The Last Man has come out. It made me think about genetic fiction, and this kind of deals with monster hunting a little bit, in the sense of, like, here's a thing where it made me think of Children of Men. It made me think of The Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, yeah. It made me think of Y: The Last Man, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. Excuse me. I feel myself coming down with something, so I apologize. Mike's like, Rod Eternal, shining and raging. I think those concepts would be sweet. Oh man. Oh yes, he's like, sorry, I missed the conversation. Oh, you're right there, JB. Listen, I knew it was coming up. Sorry, getting choked up a little bit. Illness wise, not anything else, but you could always rewind. We're just talking about monster hunting, some of the great things in it. By the way, in our Discord server, someone by the name of Kalman posted a really great link about an idea that they have about using like maps and cards and coming up with interesting monster hunting things. And like I said, monster hunting is a great concept because play literally in the title of monster. Hey guys, we're going to do monster hunting. The great thing about it is it's hyper focused. You're going to hunt and you're going to go after monsters. Great idea. But I think there's ways we can expand the idea so that it's not typically like not so restricted of all we're doing is walking through the woods and shooting at stuff. It can be more where it's what happens to the machinations politically back in the safe areas. What happens if you have rival hunter groups? What kind of monsters are they? Coming up with new and varying interactions with the monsters. Are they intelligent? Can they speak to you? Are they invasive? Do they hide in society? What kind of abilities do they have? Do they go after player characters through various vectors, poisons, gases, traps, um, sneaking around, hypnotism? Uh, um, uh, do they have healing? Do they do all kinds of different types of damage? Necrotic, thunder, sonic damage, electrical. Do they breed very quickly? Do they have large sizes and small sizes and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, thanks there. Anyway, guys, got to get out of here. Thank you, JB, there as well, and glad you could pop in. I know you lurked there in the background. You're all right. You guys are all right with me. Da-da, you're all right. All right, guys, go out there and rage. Go after the monsters. I'll see you guys later, and see you tomorrow on